It's Thursday, April 18, and time for your Barbados Today evening news update. Thanks for joining us. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Prime Minister Mia Mottley says 138 custom officers' posts have been created at the Customs and Excise Department. She says the move will accommodate clerical officers who have been acting in the position for the past several years and fill most of the 160 posts that have been vacant for some time now. However, she says there is still a lot more work to be done.
What we did was to correct a very wrong situation for which the unions had been complaining for 15 or so years. And that is that a number of clerical officers were doing customs officers' duties, but still designated as clerical officers. In many instances, they wear customs uniforms, but have been treated purely as a clerical officer. As a result of that, 2 weeks ago, I created 138 posts for clerical officers, for customs officers, to be able to accommodate these clerical officers. And in the instance where the officers are there over the threshold, they can immediately go to be qualified as customs officers 3, which was previously the lowest ranking of a customs officer in the Customs and Excise Department. In spite of all that we have done, there is still a lot more to be done.
The Prime Minister made the announcement during a press conference today where she gave an update on her recent overseas trip. She also revealed that the development of a regulatory framework for medical cannabis was now in the works.
We are also going to have to make some amendments to the legislation with respect to our own legislation, and the AG will deal with that in due course, even to ensure that Barbadian farm workers are not prejudiced in any way, because the truth is, with the conduct of medical cannabis and other, in their instance, they've gone to recreational cannabis, we haven't, that we need to make sure that our workers are not exposed in any way on the farm workers program with respect to the wages which they receive as well. So there are issues that we have to work through.
A bus fare and transportation policy fiasco. That's how opposition leader Bishop Joseph Avali is describing the newly implemented hike in bus fare and government's subsequent relief to commuters following a huge public outcry. Yesterday, Prime Minister Mia Mottley had an urgent meeting with stakeholders in the sector to hammer out issues plaguing the industry. Following the talks, she announced discounts for school children and commuters. The opposition leader says it is clear that the government had no choice but to listen to the voice of the people.
The government might want to suggest that this is an indication of a government with a listening ear, and that the government cares and therefore it is responding to its perceived needs of the public, traveling public in this case. I would prefer to put the emphasis elsewhere, and I think it points to the power of the voice of the people. So it's not so much that the government is given a caring ear and that is being indicated by the meetings ongoing. No, it is that the voice of the people is a powerful instrument, and that voice loudly sounded, expressing pain over this bus fare and this transportation policy fiasco has, I suppose, caused government to understand it really is the people who are in charge, and you operate in a context of political peril if you do not hear the voice of the people. So it's not so much the emphasis being placed on the ears of the government, it's the voice of the people.
Bishop Avali has, however, welcomed the discounts given to the traveling public.
Any kind of reduction in any area in Barbados that gives relief to the burdensome circumstances obtaining in domestic situations in Barbados, even with respect to business situations in Barbados, I suppose potentially is a good thing. I'm happy to hear that there's been some reduction and that school children will not have to pay the $350 even on in relation to travel on some of the ZRs, etc., and many buses. But we still have to bear in mind that there has been an increase with respect to them too.
Transport Minister Dr. William Duguid is reporting progress on talks with PSV operators in relation to government's proposed transport augmentation program. The parties, which also include the Transport Authority and the Transport Board, met at Solidarity House this morning to discuss details of the new contracts. The minister says further consultations will also be held.
First meeting was with some of the public service vehicle providers to try to get our contract accepted and work through the draft to be able to start to implement our transport augmentation program. And that work is in progress. The chairman of the Transport Authority, Mr. Eswick, was able to continue that after I started the meeting and try to give some direction. And they are, I'm told, halfway through, and I wouldn't want to go into that any further, but they will have subsequent drafts and meetings to finalize and thrash out finally that contract that we'll be able to use going forward with respect to the transport augmentation program.
Chief Justice Sumaston Gibson has been formally asked to intervene in a situation where judges now face the possibility of losing their jobs over the delivery of late decisions. Parliament recently amended the Constitution requiring judges to deliver their judgments within 6 months of the start of cases or face dismissal from the bench. President of the Barbados Bar Association, Liesl Weeks, spoke with Barbados Today about the matter.
I have written to the Chief Justice and asked for a meeting of the Judicial Council. Okay. The Judicial Council is the body that is responsible for establishing policy and organizing the business of the courts. And I've asked for a meeting of that council, and I've raised as an issue to be discussed these amendments to legislation because obviously there must be some strategy now to deal with the existing cases that have yet to be heard, the part-heard cases that have to be concluded, and the cases that have, the argument has been concluded and the judgment remains outstanding. There must be some strategy now to be devised to deal with those things and to bring the judges up to date so that we're starting with a fresh slate and we're not starting from a position where we're looking back to 2010 and realizing that there's a judgment outstanding for 9 years or a judgment outstanding for 7 years or 3 judgments outstanding for 8 years or, you know. So that strategy needs to be devised, and I've asked for a meeting of the Judicial Council to deal with that.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region, we head to Dominica, where police are reporting that a plane with 4 people on board crashed in the vicinity of the Douglas Charles Airport. The plane, believed to be a Cessna, was on its way from Martinique to Guadeloupe when the incident occurred. Police said a search party has been sent out to the area and more information will be provided later. The incident comes on the heels of last week's crash landing of a Sky High Aviation Services Jetstream 41 aircraft. There were no fatalities. And finally, the United Nations expressed concern over the cholera situation in Yemen. Nearly 223,000 suspected cases of cholera have been reported in the country so far this year. UN spokesman Stefan Durich says nearly a quarter of the cases are children under the age of 5.
Nearly 223,000 suspected cases have been reported so far this year. This is 3 times the number of cases reported during the same period last year, and nearly a quarter of the cases of children are under 5. A spiraling epidemic with mass morbidity and death could occur if current trends are not quickly brought under control. Agencies are particularly concerned because this increase has come months before the usual spike in cases during the rainy season, which take place in August in Yemen.
And that's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Have a wonderful and safe Easter weekend. And please join us again for your next Barbados Today news update on Tuesday morning.